Hello and welcome to episode 1335 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Friday, August 23rd. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Hasn't been too long since we talked. I know that we had another night of games, and nothing too crazy happened last night, right? There were some pretty good matchups, though.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Burns got beat up a little bit by Houston. I was excited about that game. Kind of wanted to see where he was at, but no, I just
We had the best pitcher in baseball on the mound in Osvaldo Beto.
Oh, I didn't know if you're
Just
talking about Beto or Spencer Schwellenbach.
Schwellenbach too.
Yeah, the top
Uh,
two guys in the league right now.
yeah, that
No,
yeah.
Beto great against the Rays. Schwelly stood tall against the Phillies. Christopher Sanchez, for his part, 6 innings, 3 runs, not too bad with 8 Ks. 6 2/3, 2 runs for Schwelly with 9 Ks. So those two youngsters battling was really impressive. And then I don't know if you were watching any of that Braves Phillies game, but then Iglesias comes in, 12 pitches, 3 strikeouts. Get out of here.
He
Like
hasn't
he
allowed
looked
an earned run since the middle of June.
he's he's
He's
so
been
dialed in right
yeah.
now that like if they do make it, he's going to be an instrumental piece to where they could make a run because obviously they're losing bodies left and right. But once you get in, you never know. I know I say that all the time, but it is so very true. And having somebody like Iglesias, who right now is just untouchable, has got to feel good. So
Yeah.
I've also still been thinking about the draft, to be honest. It's so great to have all that info to pour over. Again, big shouts to Rob DiPietro at the Dead Pull Hitter podcast, putting that together. Pull Hitter podcast, actually, his name on Twitter is Dead Pull Hitter. We have shortstops, outfield, and relievers to go over. So let's go ahead and jump right back into that before we get to the two steps. And let's start with shortstop because, we talked about some of the infield spots yesterday, and there were some light spots. We hit on second base being particularly light with just 9 second basemen going in these first 11 rounds. Even third base felt a little light. It had 12 guys, but there was actually some carryover from the second base with dual eligible guys, so it's not quite as many names. And then we talked about the drop off at first base. So let's go to a stacked position because shortstop looking hot right now. Justin, right at this moment from this draft, we had 8 guys from shortstop go in the top 30. Bobby Witt, Gunnar Henderson, Ellie De La Cruz in the top 7. Betts at 10, Lindor at 15, Seager 19, Trey Turner 25, and CJ Abrams up to 28, your boy. What do you think of shortstop at large here with 16 shortstops going in the top 11 rounds?
Yeah. I think that this is just a stacked position once again. I feel like we had like a year or two kind of off where it felt like shortstop it still was stacked at the top, but kind of thinned out, and it's now back to just being a completely stacked position. I will say there is a massive drop off like between Willie Adames and Bo Bichette for me. Like I feel like that is a
Well,
massive
and
tier.
for the league though too, from 68 to 107 in the picks. And
Yeah.
honestly, I think it starts after that group of 8 I talked about with Abrams capping it off at 28, because then you drop down to 42
Yeah.
for O'Neal Cruz, who's still, and I respect it because I want to take advantage of a cheap price, but the market refuses to push him down. And I do get it, but is O'Neal Cruz too high? I mean, should get to a 2020 season, needs 2 homers, 4 steals. That seems reasonable. Let's go ahead and give him 2020, 260. I understand the upside. Are you paying pick 48 or 42 for O'Neal Cruz based on what we saw this year? Have you seen enough to feel confident pushing in, knowing that the ceiling is still pretty high on O'Neal Cruz?
I think that is a fairish price. I think it's a bit high. Um Maybe a bit higher than I would probably go for, especially because I don't buy the batting average necessarily being something that's going to be sticky year to year. He
Because of his
just,
Ks, right?
yeah, he just swings and misses way too much, right? Like
Right.
he's, even in this season, it's 32% strikeout rate. The XBA is pretty much right in line with where he is, where he should be. But that zone contact number is 77.4%. Like there's gonna be like a huge variance. He's gonna be one of these guys that I'm gonna talk about when we start doing draft prep, where like you look at their batting average numbers year to year, and you go like, oh, this year it's 230, next year it's 280, and then
Right. A
260.
total wild card
Like
on guys like O'Neal
you're just
Cruz.
never going to be able to predict his batting average, and I think this is going to be probably one of the better ones that we get to see from a guy like O'Neal Cruz. So
I agree.
and but I think that the fact that he's going to be probably better than 2020 means he's likely to be worth a 5th, 6th round draft pick in some regards.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be prepared for that batting average variance, because I think
Right.
a lot of people are going to be penciling in a 260 batting average when he could be Joey Gallo, like, right? Like where he's giving you power and speed, but like he's also giving you a 210.
He's hemorrhaging your average, and you have to be careful with that with O'Neal Cruz, and that was something that we preached with Elly De La Cruz, and I did make a lot of comps to them, and I do want to go back to that a little bit and point out that it's just wrong, because O'Neal Cruz simply not going to run at that same clip. We've seen no evidence of it, and I never thought that he would go 1-to-1 with him, but I'm thinking I'm getting a baby Elly here. At the time when I was really promoting it, they were like 50 picks apart. By the time draft season really got there, I think they were closer to maybe like 2 rounds max, 25, 30 picks. And it became less of a value proposition on O'Neal Cruz if you were pivoting off Elly. But simple fact is I got both of them wrong. And O'Neal is just not going to run at that same clip to be anywhere near Elly. Unless they just take the reins off next year, Pittsburgh has a whole redefinition of what they do. They're not, the similarities stop at like their height and their raw talent with Elly and O'Neal Cruz.
I don't know if that's actually true, and I'm not trying to get myself in trouble again, but like the underlying,
he has 30 steals and 877 plate appearances to Elly's.
No, I'm not
95.
Disagreeing.
Well, that's my biggest. That's all I'm saying there between those two. But the rest of it is similar.
Yeah, like the in zone contact, like Elly De La Cruz is under 80% in zone contact. He, now the big difference for Elly, this season was the 10% walk rate, right? He became a better decision maker at the plate in terms of not swinging outside the zone, whereas O'Neal Cruz hasn't done that. O'Neal Cruz is still swinging outside the zone 35 or 34% of the time, whereas Elly is only swinging outside the zone. I want to say it's like 26% of the time. Like,
do you remember what it? Do you have what it was last year?
It was 32% last year.
So that's a 6-point drop for Elly De La Cruz. Probably paired with teams pitching him tighter, and which is good though, because sometimes when we see these guys come out, be electric, teams pitch them tighter, they don't tighten up. They keep free swinging and still walk 7% of the time. So that has been a big improvement from Elly, and that really helps that stolen base foundation. So I'm really only talking about the fact that projections, you kind of have to have like a 40 steal difference between them. And so that's what separates them. And I didn't think it was going to be that stark, because I kind of thought O'Neal Cruz, when healthy, was going to run more. Maybe we're a year out from the busted ankle, right? Maybe next year he does run more. I still don't think he gets to Elly level. Let's go back real quick, because I was on O'Neal Cruz there. Let's go back to the top of the heap there with that Bobby Witt to CJ Abrams core of 8. Do you have any objections with those 8 being top 30 picks, top 2 rounds in our 15 teamers? Any of those stand out to you as like, I can't pay that?
No, I think they all belong there. I think the one thing you could really discuss is, all right, like, and this is hard, and someone like brought this up either on the YouTube comments, or maybe it was on Twitter or something like that, and they said like people are still sleeping on Francisco Lindor.
Oh, always, permanently. Chief among them, New York Mets fans. I'm so tired of these morons pretending like they don't have one of the best shortstops in the generation.
He's going to have his second consecutive 30-30 season this year. And that is outrageous that like he's going in the first round, but barely here. Like, I think you can make the claim that, hey, he's a mid-first rounder.
Right.
In
I
draft.
love Lindor. I'm so in the bag for him. And I just think that the market underrates him.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, he's a fun player. Maybe it's the Mets are, kind of not the powerhouse we thought they were going to be.
I kind of think it's still that first Mets year lingering. He went
Yeah.
2010 hitting 230. Nobody allows for the transition year, I guess, especially going to New York. Everyone talks about how the hype and how tough it can be, and then they crush the guy when they don't succeed there. It's like you just pointed out why it might be a little tough to kind of transition. Plus, he was hurt. He only played 125 games, so it might not even have been. I'm not suggesting that Francisco Lindor couldn't handle New York scene and all that, but we talk about it all the time. First year of a huge new deal could be a wild card. Some guys pop off immediately, other guys take a moment. To me, I keep comparing Lindor to Beltran. Had the
Hmm.
first tough year with the Mets, switch hitting god, first tough year with the Mets, immediately back on track after that, back to full superstar status. And like you said, he's 5 homers and steals away, 25-25 right now, from a second straight 30-30 season. Shouts to Jenny Butler for taking him in the first round, but I'm with you. He could go further, a little bit more up in the first round, and I wouldn't balk at it. But I don't think he
Yeah.
will. I think if anything, he goes down. Like when
Yeah.
pitching gets pushed up, Lindor is probably one of the casualties.
Like, I mean, as much as I love a guy like Tatis or a guy like J Rod or even like a guy like Kyle Tucker, like the fact that Lindor is going behind those guys, I don't know if it's ageism
With their health
or
concerns too, right?
yeah,
Is what you're
exactly.
saying.
With their health concerns, like why wouldn't you want, just a lockdown shortstop
Right.
like that?
Who
I
punches the
mean,
clock daily? And
yeah,
again, I know I just got done saying he got hurt in 2021, but since then, 161, 160, and an MLB best 128 games played so far this year with an MLB high 584 plate appearances. So I'm totally
I'm,
with you
we're
on
talking about
Lindor.
a guy who this is his 10th MLB season, and if you don't include his rookie year where he got called up, early on, early inside of the season, like he has played pretty much almost every single game in all of them
Right.
except for one. Like
Right.
that's ridiculous. 158, 159, 158, 143, the 60 game season in a 60 game or 60 games
He
in a
played
60
all
game
60.
season.
Yeah.
125 is the down year in 2021, but then the 2 seasons prior to this, 161, 160. Like he plays every day and is
Give,
a
give me
30-30 dude.
Give me Semyon Lindor up the middle, and I got
Yeah.
1,400 plate appearances off rip, and not even off rip because I was suggesting like you have to take them early. You get Semyon 3-4 rounds later now.
Yeah.
You had to take him in the second, third this year, but now you can wait. And I just love locking in that plate that those plate appearance production numbers. It's wonderful. We got to go to your boy before we go to the little bit of the lower tier here. Abrams, he's doing it again. I know we've already talked about how big time fan of his. He didn't quite get in on the hype this year. He's I think he's met the hype of being a top 50 pick, 18 homers, 25 steals right now with a 246 average. Looks very similar to last year. 18 homers is exactly how many he had in 100 fewer plate appearances. He did have 47 steals compared to the 25 this year, but we knew he went on that crazy steal surge there in the second half. He should still get mid 30s unless he runs crazy and gets back up to 40. Are you confident in going for Abrams this year? Now that you've seen a full year at the high end, can you get back on your boy Abrams here and start paying the premium?
I mean, I think he's worth the pick, but I don't know that I'm going to be getting him where he's going to be going.
Okay, that's fair. 28 was the ADP right now. I think he'll live in like 25 to 40 range.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about oh god, who was the guy we were just talking about?
Lindor?
Uh, no, was it some? I feel like it was someone
Lindor
else,
was the
but
previous talking point. What were we saying?
we're talking about the guy being 2020 and not going high enough. I thought, but
Oh, were
uh,
we? Who was that?
now I'm blanking.
Oh, well,
So,
no. I mean, we were talking that Cruz is going to get to
Cruz,
2020.
yeah, like
O'Neal Cruz.
why take CJ Abrams when I can get O'Neal
Yeah,
Cruz?
now they are the comparison, and I
Yeah,
even
yeah,
did like when I wrote my ill-fated busts article that includes both Abrams and Ellie De La Cruz. I got Nolan Jones and Zach Geloff, guys. Come on, I crushed it. I would loop in Abrams too. I'm like, if you don't want to pay the premium on Ellie, Abrams, Cruz are giving you that same vibe. But I also didn't really want to pay for Abrams
I
this year. I was a little
I
bit nervous
also
on
like.
him.
I think the better question is like, why am I going to play for Abrams when I can get Anthony Volpe that much later? Like, I just
And That's our transition to get into the later half, guys, because we
Yeah.
do still have to do outfield and relief. Our boy Willie Adames going 68. I like him too. But once you jump down, you mentioned going from Adames at 68 to Bo Bichette is 107. We got a group of 5 here in the 100 to 160 range. Bo Bichette 107, Ceddanne Rafaela 112, Zico Tovar, your favorite player, 114, Volpe, who you just highlighted, 126, which I also love, and then Tyler Fitzgerald at 158. Because like we talked about last week, dude has kept doing it since the 7-homer week. Like not at the same clip, but he's remained productive. Hit on Volpe real quick, and then we'll take this whole group of 5 with Volpe. We've seen some of the struggles, like he hasn't quite popped off, but he did make that concerted change to get out of the air a little bit, get more batting average, which he did. I realize it's only a 250, so you're not like doing backflips, but it was 209 last year. It did come at the expense of power. 11 homers. Do you think he kind of finds the Goldilocks zone next year where he can still hit for average, bring a little bit more of that power back, and he's stealing at a better clip this year than he did last year? 24 in 601 plate appearances last year, 23 so far in 568. Talk to us about what year 3 for Volpe looks like.
I mean, he's gonna be 24. He turns 24 at the beginning of the season, and he just hits high up in that Yankees lineup, and I just feel like everything is set up for him to be. I guess he is not hitting high up anymore, but everything's set up for him to just be a stud. There's power, there's speed. He's increased his own contact numbers to get him around league average. I just think there is like a 2035 season with like a 260 batting average on deck at some point. Maybe it's not in 2025 because he is only 24. Maybe we're gonna have to wait a few years, but I'm gonna keep buying in. Yeah, especially at the price. Like this just feels like it's a bit too low. I don't want to say it's like criminally low for him, but it is a bit too low for him. And so like I totally understand why people might say, listen, yeah, shortstop is stacked at the top, but I might wait a little while and go get a shortstop a little bit later on because I feel like, there's some guys down there that have some pretty big upsides.
I totally agree.
Especially in this tier, we've got Ceddanne Rafaela, who like I don't love Ceddanne Rafaela's, contact skills, but I do love the power and the speed and the.
But he's young too,
yeah,
right? He's 24 next year as well, kind of figuring it out. Played a prominent role here for this Boston club. He's intriguing as heck, Ceddanne Rafaela, and he should have outfield, infield next year because he'll have shortstop and outfield eligibility. So I do like that too from Rafaela. Can I spin back real quick? I know we're supposed to be in these 5 guys from the hundreds, but I'd be remiss if we glossed over Zach Neto, who I think I told you, I don't know if it was on the show or privately, that I've been keyed in on him a bit more because my unending stupidity of continuing to roster Griffin Canning, along with my rightful rostering of Jose Soriano, has led me to watch way too many Angels games this year. But he keeps standing out, and I've been super impressed. He's now a homer away from a 2020 season with 19 homers, 22 steals. He goes a decent bit higher than this group of 5 at pick 64, but I don't think that's out of pocket. Our buddy James Anderson took Neto there. What do you think of Neto as a top 70 pick?
I mean, this is hard, because the profile says he shouldn't be this good.
I think that's what's been surprising to me because I agree. I kind of came in a little light on him this year, Zach Neto, thinking, okay, he's fine. He's a good major leaguer. I think the Angels hit on something here, but is he a fantasy stud? No, it was my thinking.
I thought
I've been wrong.
I thought he was going to be like a guy who was an accumulator, you never were going to win your season with Zach Neto, but he should play every day because he's a good defender and he's got enough pop and enough speed. But this feels like a guy who's reached his 90 percentile outcome in every regard this season, and I just feel like is going to be a step back kind of everywhere. Maybe not on the speed because Ron Washington loves to run, and the Angels just really put a big vote of confidence yesterday, while the Mariners, who are still in a playoff race, are firing their manager. The Angels are signing their GM to a long-term deal, in last place in the division, and I think that means that Ron Washington's been around a while, and that means the team is going to run quite a bit. So I think the speed for sure should stick around, even though he's not a Neto's not a blazing fast guy or anything like that, but
Savvy
like we
runner
said,
though.
he's a savvy runner, and the ability and opportunity to run, like being there is the most important thing when
Right.
it comes to this kind of thing.
Right.
So my question is he a guy who's going to hit 20 home runs every season? I don't necessarily think he is, but like, why can't he be a 250 hitter with 15 home runs and 25 stolen bases? And that alone, I think, is easily worth where he went in this draft, which was pick 64. So, like, I think, yeah, fifth, sixth round, I don't have a problem with Zach Neto going there. I think he is looked at as maybe a boring-ish pick. I don't think there is
Sure.
massive upside, but like he could be Marcus Simeon-esque for the Angels for the next few years at least. So
Yeah, I think that's totally fair there, and I don't think that any of that analysis on Zach Neto's terribly out of pocket there. I do wonder if maybe a big batting average could be in the offing one of these years. And you just mentioned it with regards to a particular player, but batting average in general is pretty tough to predict.
and
But I
he's not a high contact guy, right? He's like
That's true.
84% zone contact. And like he doesn't strike the ball particularly hard. You look at like the StatCast data, and it's like it's a 9% barrel rate. It's a 38% hard hit rate. Like I don't know that there is a ton of upside in the power and the batting average, but I think there's at least a decent floor. And I think he's just one of these guys who doesn't have a massive wide range of outcomes. Like I don't think there's any real risk that he like completely falls off. But I also don't think there's any risk where like or any
Any
upside like
upside.
where we go like, oh, Zach Neto is going to be a first round pick now because of
Sure.
this season. Like I don't think that ever happens, but I also
Okay.
think he will just be a consistent producer.
Yeah, I just wish if you're gonna have a 7% walk rate that you were striking out under 20,
Yeah.
It's just a little bit tighter there. But like you said, everything's pretty solid, but nothing's super standout for Neto. But I don't have a problem with the pick slot either, with regards to Zach Neto. All right, so then Bichette, Rafaela, Tovar, Volpe, Fitzgerald. We talked about a couple of them. Bichette is too up in the air right now because we don't know if he's going to get traded, so I don't want to spend too much time on him. Let's finish with your boy Fitzgerald. 158. Do you have him inside the top 11 rounds, you think, with what we've seen this year?
He's such a Fitzgerald is such a difficult guy to like figure out. Like there's seemingly no reason why he's having this massive
Did
year.
I
I
already
mean,
call him Zach Geloff on a show?
I don't know, but I mean that's not a bad
Because that's
like.
exactly
Um,
how I feel.
he's 81% zone contact, which is improving like throughout the year a little bit. So that is better, but like he doesn't strike the ball particularly hard. It's a really bad park. I mean, we're talking about a guy whose max exit velocity is 107, 34% hard hit rate. His XBA is 259. So like the batting average for sure is going to be coming back down to earth. I think the power comes back down to earth as well. So
Is he a
I'm
legit runner, Fitzgerald? He's 14 for 17. Are you buying the steal situation with Tyler Fitzgerald at least? I like
I
the
mean,
efficiency.
there is, I'd say above average MLB speed. The problem is the Giants have not been an organization that wants to run.
Right, but they seemingly are letting him with, 14 steals in 221 plate appearances. That's not bad. That's pretty
Yeah.
good there. That's what 40 something pace.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting that he's the guy like that is like stealing because we're talking about Giants who are the last or team who's in last in stolen bases this year. They
Right.
have
I
49
think
stolen bases. And for context, Cincinnati and Washington both have 175 and 173. So 49 is
is it
like almost a quarter.
is it because you guys usually have 48-year-olds who can't run
That
because you get
that
Tyler Fitzgerald with
that's
a
part of it.
99 percentile sprint speed here and they finally have a burner so they're letting him run a bit.
Yeah, I mean that may be part of it. When you've got like Michael Conforto, I mean even
Right.
Matt Chapman's been stealing bases this year. So
Right? He's
uh,
12 for 14. So
yeah,
they're letting him be shifty out there too. But when you got all these
it
old
may be
guys
a
that
it may be a roster construction issue where they just don't have
sure.
the guys. And like Tyro Estrada has been a really really kind of disappointing guy, but he's also been banged up this year. So like, and So like I can understand maybe, hey, you've been banged up. We don't want you running, and you're not batting towards the top of the lineup anyways. So we don't want you
Right.
running into the outs and in the 6-7 hole. So maybe it's a team that runs more when they get new guys in next season. But yeah, I mean, I think they've got to give Fitzgerald an opportunity, right? Like I don't know
For
how
sure.
you,
I
I don't
mean,
know how
he's done
you
enough to earn
not,
that.
yeah, like I don't know, yeah, how you don't like I
He's
think
even
you've got
pitched
to.
3 innings for y'all. You guys got a two-way stud here. No, but Tyler Fitzgerald has been impressive. I certainly don't have a problem with a 158 ADP if that's where he ends up being. We'll see how it goes. But again, I'm getting heavy Zach Geloff vibes when he went 14-14 down the stretch last year in 300 plate appearances. I just hadn't seen the skills to suggest that he could build upon that or even kind of emulate that over a full season. With 300 plate appearances, it was so easy to just kind of double it and dream on like 25-25 because 600 plate appearances is like a normal season. For the record, he has 15 homers, 16 steals this year in 414 plate appearances for Zach Geloff, but with a 198 average. So that I do worry about some of that. Also, against Tyler Fitzgerald that was in favor for Zach Geloff. Geloff was at least a young prospect going into his age
Hmm.
24 season. Fitzgerald's a late bloomer here. He's going to be 27 next year. This just might be the best that he is and the
Yeah,
best we ever see.
and
All right.
that's why I won't get Tyler Fitzgerald. Like
I don't think I will either.
my projections on him is going to be much lower than everybody else's, I think.
All right, I'm gonna do something different here at outfield. We're not gonna talk about anybody that's going in the top 20 because we talked about a lot of them already. Judge, Soto,
Yeah.
Tucker, Acuna, J-Rod, Tatis, Alvarez, Carroll, all going in the top 20. I want to start with the guy at 20, Jaron Duran, and simply ask, do you buy it? Breakout season, huge. Um, do you buy in on Jaron Duran? Is he a top 20 monster now?
Top 20 feels really, really high, but I mean, I do buy it. And this was a guy that I really, really loved coming into the season. I wish I'd gotten even more shares than I did, but we're talking about a guy who's above average in zone contact, strikes the ball, decently hard, and has just a ton of speed. So, I think there's not much you can say maybe the batting average takes a step back. Maybe 293 is a bit rich and he's more of a 275 guy, but that's 275 with, like 20 home runs and 40 stolen bases potentially. I think he probably deserves to be a top 30 pick.
Right.
Maybe 20 was a little bit higher than I would have gone, especially considering the guys that got passed up in favor of a Jaron Duran. I mean, Devers, Freeman, Harper, Wheeler,
More
Trey Turner.
established guys. And that's
Yeah,
probably an effect of doing the draft in August of a
yeah.
season where he's the ninth ranked guy on the player radar and you're just like all in on the Duran hype. I do get that.
But the upside is immense for him.
It's rich.
So
Yeah.
I
He's
mean,
really tapped into a bunch of it this year too.
if he were to hit 30 home runs and steal 50 bases, are we really going to be that surprised?
No.
I don't think we are. And Boston's offense has been like top 5 all year, in spite of the fact that like guys like Rob Resnider and William Abreu and other like guys that you wouldn't necessarily think of like as a part of a top tier offense have played massive roles throughout, and they've missed times with Tristan Casas missing a lot of time, and Rafael Devers really struggling with health at the beginning of the season, and they've still been a top 5 offense. You got to think they get better offensively.
Right.
They're not like, I don't think they're taking a step back necessarily. Especially if Trevor Story ever figures out how to stay healthy. So
Poor
like,
guy.
there's a lot of uh there's a lot of upside in Jaron Duran. So I don't know that I would take him 20th overall. I think he deserves to be in that conversation for sure.
Jaron Duran was also on my bus.
I
Jesus
can't
Christ,
I
Paul.
can't wait to go through that.
Ellie De La Cruz, CJ Abrams, Tyler Glass now. Nolan Jones. Zach Geloff, Estuary Ruiz, Cedric Mullins, Jaron Duran, Jose Alvarado. Okay, so some hits, some misses. Some hilarious misses, though. Like 4 guys in the top 20 this year. Ellie, Abrams, Glasnow, Duran. I'll call the list a flat bust. The only bust is that list. All right, moving on in the outfield here. Chorio at 36 makes sense. You know, he's shown some things in the second half to say, hey, if you were concerned about the first half, you're probably overrating it. I think the upside is obviously super, super rich with him. 15 steals, 15 homers, 18 steals, 273 average. Chorio looks like a stud. James Wood at 45, not terribly surprising. People ready to pay the premium on him. Michael Harris at 47. Now we've had our issues with him. We've not been terribly huge fans of Michael Harris from a fantasy perspective, and how his price point kind of always stays firm. Kind of a washout season this year, only 75 games so far, hasn't gone particularly well. I know you're not paying the top 50 premium, but how do you feel about it? Is this a massive mistake or a medium mistake? Like, where are you at on Michael Harris as a top 50 guy? Or maybe you're going to surprise me and say you are paying the premium, but I doubt it. Where are you at on Michael Harris the second?
I mean, I think I'm right where I was previous to this, which is I can't
It's not our guy.
rationalize spending the price on a guy with these kind of skills. And then you add in the fact that he has now missed a ton of time this year with injury, and like that wasn't even a negative in the profile for Michael Harris prior to this season, right? Like
Right. We never said word one about injury.
no,
When we
but
weren't fans of his, that was never our problem with Michael
for
Harris.
for me, it's the swing outside of the zone 40% of the time. Like
Right.
that to me was always indicative of a guy that's gonna kind of go through struggles. When you just don't have a good eye at the plate, like there's gonna be ups and downs. Uh, I understand like that the upside, is still fairly immense, but now you add in an injury, risk tag, and I can't imagine like that I would ever draft him at a top 60 price.
That's where I'm
I don't
at.
like.
I
I don't
can't
even
do
know
it.
if he's a top 100 player, to be honest.
I don't think that's a problem to say there with Michael Harris. And I guess the real point, as is often the case when you're really against somebody's price point, is guys that are going after him. Why on earth would I pay Michael Harris 47 when even somebody I don't like that much, Luis Robert, is 72?
Yeah,
Because I don't think Luis Robert's going to be a White Sox to start next year. But
yeah.
more importantly, Brendan Doyle at 83. Literally, why would I go for Harris when Doyle's there?
I
40
mean,
picks later.
I know you don't like this guy, and you finally get to take your victory lap on Adolis Garcia. But like, what's the difference between Adolis Garcia and Michael Harris, except for Adolis Garcia doesn't get hurt,
Right.
and you can get him in the 10th round?
Yeah, he's now dropped to 140. Yeah, the world has joined me on the Adolis
Yeah.
Garcia train there with a drop
Like
down to
Adolis Garcia is going to
142.
be a bargain, I think.
Oh yeah, because his price is going to crater.
Yeah, and I'd much rather take the gamble on Adolis Garcia, who has shown us he can put up 30 home runs.
Right.
And we know he has speed. Like now,
It
I
just
don't
feels
think
like a
Adolis.
premium for somebody coming off a rotten season. Like again, take Adolis. Bad season, punished
Yeah,
for it. Now I understand the age discrepancy is vast
and,
between those
and
two.
the Rangers don't run. Like the Rangers are not a team that like run on the base paths. So
Right. But a
I
hundred
get
pick
it.
difference between them, a
Yeah, no
hundred
way.
pick. I can't do it. And yeah, no, I won't belabor it, but I just can't do it on Michael Harris. It's just not my guy. Jackson Merrill could be rookie of the year. I kind of think he should be over Skeens. Nothing against Skeens. It's actually just more pro
I
Merrill.
agree.
And a lot of times when you're talking rookie of the year, I'm going to put a huge premium on somebody who's been there all year. And I know that that's not Skeens' fault. So I'm not holding it against him, but I'm using it for Jackson Merrill. And he's been there all the way since the Korea games and just
And I mean,
been
I,
dominating.
I'm obviously not a voter. I don't think I ever will be.
Correct.
But
Neither. Correct that you're not a voter. Not that you never will
yeah.
be. I don't know. Maybe one day we
uh,
will. That'd be cool.
but like the fact that Merrill is a position player that plays every day and plays on a good team,
Right.
like
And has been
and
a
while
catalyst for that good team too.
and that's what I mean. Like Like because I don't love when I see like, well, like, oh, you got to vote for this pitcher for Cy Young because he's got so many more wins. Like, well, that pitcher is on Houston, like,
Right.
like
Versus the guy on.
the guy on Pittsburgh, like he's been way better. He just hasn't had the opportunity to win because his team doesn't win.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I do think that I make the exception for a guy like Jackson Merrill because he's been involved in so many late game heroics
Right.
that like
His WPA is up there, win probability added. Like
yeah.
he is in the trenches there. And I got to be honest, with rookie of the year, I don't usually get too much on like the team. I try to take the team context in general. Like I don't like when
Yeah.
an MVP is voted because their team made the playoffs and their team didn't. That's stupid. But if you're looking for tiebreakers and you're starting to pick nits, like the fact that he's, like you said, involved in the biggest moments this year, Jackson Merrill, that's where I'm leaning right now. And I love what Skeens has done. Another huge outing last night, 104 brilliant innings, but 470 plate appearances from a 21-year who, by the way, switched to a brand new position in the outfield.
Yeah.
I don't think that can be understated too.
He
So
was
I don't
a
want to belabor us.
shortstop. He was a
Right.
short,
He
like
goes from shortstop to center
center, yeah.
and
And
picks it up.
amazing. Yeah.
Picks
like,
it up. So
yeah.
let's take it to the fantasy. 18-13 with the homers and steals, 289 average. That was the reason I liked him, was the average. I really, really felt that regardless of what we got with the fantasy counting categories, I thought Jackson Merrill could bring a nice batting average to the table. 289 has obviously been fantastic. He's a top 50 pick. I don't have any problems with it. I really believe he is a dude. I'm a huge Jackson Merrill fan. What about you for fantasy purposes?
I mean, I gotta like take my L on Merrill. Not because like I got the profile wrong, because I think the profile of just like a guy who could be a really, really good accumulator is what Jackson Merrill is.
Mm-hmm.
I got like the opportunity like wrong. Like I didn't see like how he was going to break into this lineup on an everyday basis, especially changing positions to a position he had never really played before.
Right.
And so I think, and this is going to sound weird if you've just started playing fantasy in the last few years, but like Andrew Benintendi was like the premium accumulator early on in his career, and like I feel like that could be what Jackson Merrill is, not having the downfall of Andrew Benintendi, but like
even their profile. Like I think
yeah,
that's just like an interesting comparison in general. If you're just and you're stressing peak
yeah,
Benintendi,
yeah,
which we've already
yeah,
seen in Boston. Like I don't know that he's going to have a career renaissance at any point here.
yeah,
But those first three Boston years when he was like essentially a 2020 type guy
yeah,
over the course of a full season with a good batting average, that makes sense to me. And I'm okay
yeah.
with Merrill being that.
Like I don't think Merrill's ever like a a 30-30 guy or a 25-25 guy, but like yeah, I mean, like why can't he just be like a low 20s, mid-teens, kind of guy with a good batting average on a really good team in San Diego? Like I know San Diego's kind of like been up and down in terms of like how good the team actually is, but like the core talent around him is pretty damn good.
And they stay
Uh,
committed to winning. Like they,
yeah,
the minute they get a prospect,
even when they
in,
shouldn't, like they,
yeah, the minute they get a prospect in, they ship them off to Chicago for something good. So they
yeah,
are keeping that window open, and right now, it's going well for them.
hmm
They're
yeah.
having a nice season. So I like Merrill quite a bit. Let's jump down a bit. Anybody else here in the top 100? These last four guys: Chisholm, Robert, Doyle, or we kind of already talked Robert, Doyle, Rosarena, or Chisholm. Anything you want to go there before we get in the guys in the hundreds?
I mean, Doyle is like unreal. Like
I love him.
I mean, this is like why you take like high upside lottery tickets at the end, because every once in a while they change something and like the massive loud tools come through.
Right. You bet on
Like
talent. This is a one where defense could have led you to this too. Because we
yeah,
don't think about defense for fantasy, but when you play brilliant center field defense in Coors, your opportunity is locked. So if you believe in the talent at all, which I think you were in on him too, so I'm not trying to take anything from you, but I know Jason and
I wasn't really
okay,
because I mean, as a guy who, I mean, if you've listened to the podcast for any length of time, like I love core contact skills, right? Like
right, and
and
35% K last year probably didn't do much
yeah,
for you.
he had a 79% zone contact, and that was up from like the numbers in AAA, he had a 66% zone contact in AAA.
This is Brenton Doyle we're talking about from the
Like,
Rockies. He struck out a lot.
he had a 19% swing and strike rate in AAA. And I'm just like, like, I love the defense. I love the power speed profile, but like, you've got to be able to make contact. He's at 86% zone contact. That is pretty much right at league average. And it's a lot. He's doing that while not sacrificing the power, while not sacrificing the approach. I love the change that he made this year. I don't know if he was working at like Driveline or with a new hitting coach or whatever, but like whatever it is, has worked, and it's worked all year long. I think that if he wasn't a guy going outside the top 300, maybe he'd be higher than this 83, and I'd be totally fine with that. Like, I think Brenton Doyle is has the potential to be a 30-30 guy, and in Coors, like, it's just ridiculous.
Right. And for someone like Doyle, you were not wrong about the plate approach and having some trepidation there. I think where Jason and I jumped in was just blindly kind of looking at somebody who went power speed and had opportunity in Coors and just kind of hoping it clicked. Now, I don't want to speak for Jason. Maybe he did know some things that were like, oh, actually, he is working over here at this place, because he stays dialed in on all that sort of stuff. For me, blind faith in a brilliant defender with power speed upside that can maybe do something. So it wasn't some miraculous pick where I was super keyed in on Doyle. I did love him, but it was really just fundamental. I see 10 and 22, 10 homers, 22 steals, and 431 plate appearances from a Gold Glove center fielder. I'll take a shot at pick 350.
I got him for a buck in Tout Wars.
Well, there you go. You at least benefited.
No, hold on.
Fuck.
The only reason I did it was because you and Jason were both standing in the room, and I was like, yeah, screw it. I'm just going to do a dart throw. I'll take your guy and see if I can profit off of it. I dropped him in April.
Son of a.
And I think about like, oh, my team needs power like right now.
Where would those extra? I mean, you probably only got 2 or 3 homers max. Where would those extra 18 homers do for you right about now from Brenton Doyle?
Yeah, dang. I'd definitely be in a better position to win Tout Wars right now. So
now I will say some of those contact concerns still exist, and if he didn't jump up to a 332 BABIP, he wouldn't be hitting 271. Does he jump all the way back to 203? I don't think so, but maybe plan for something like 255 with the power speed to be safe with Doyle.
And like all Rockies, he's got massive home road splits. He's hitting 330 at home, 220 on the road. So, I mean, it's just something you're going to want to try to optimize the best. And if you are the type of person that doesn't like to try to optimize, if you just say, hey, I want to draft my team, put it in there, take guys in and out when they're like, they're injured or whatever.
Only when they're hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, then maybe Brenton Doyle's not for you. But if you're anything like, I think the vast majority of our listeners you just live and die for baseball. Like, you're probably not listening to our podcast if you're just a casual fan.
I was just about to say, especially in August, late August, if you're listening, you're a diehard. And we love it.
Especially if you're, one of the guys or girls that listen to us in like October and November, you're probably willing to put in the work to optimize. So
to mitigate some of that 220 average from Doyle on the road. Yeah, no, I totally get that. And you always have to be careful with that with the Colorado guys. But also make sure that you're planning for those extra counting categories to be made up elsewhere too, because he does have 11 homers and 11 steals with that 220. All right, we will never finish if we do not pick up the pace here.
Yeah.
This giant group of guys in the 100s. There's 21 outfielders going after pick 100 here. Give me a favor too. Actually, let me guide you to one before you give a fave. Our boy Seiya Suzuki at 134. Are you still bought in here? Because I feel like the price point is not out of pocket. We're still we're still fans coming into this year. I think he's been good enough to stay committed. Where do you stand on our boy Seiya Suzuki?
The underlying skills say he just should be better.
That's what we thought. We gave him an injury pass last year, and I still feel pretty good though. 16 and 10 with 264 hasn't been terrible in 100 games.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a 115 max EV. He's got a 48% hard hit rate. I do think that at some point there is just a massive season from Suzuki coming, and for that reason alone, I'm just gonna keep buying in. I
Me too.
do want to like think, kind of bake in, and I think this price is fair because he has missed a lot of time over the course of, his MLB career. It's never
Right.
like been a massive injury, but there's always been something going
Something
on. So like,
usually.
I don't think you're going to project him for much more than 500 plate appearances any given season. But like I said, I think there is massive power upside at some point, and he can hit for a decent batting average and throw in chip and steals. So Suzuki's a guy that's going to still be on my board. Maybe I'm not like targeting him in every draft, and I didn't target him in every draft this year, but
Same.
I think he's definitely a guy that I still love, and that
Me too.
I do believe there is a massive season coming at some point.
134 and somewhere around there is a totally fair price point
Yeah,
for Seiya Suzuki. I will remain bought
absolutely.
into. Okay, now you pick a guy in those 100s that you want to have some talking points about.
Jason Dominguez at 130 is insane.
Insane, too high because he hasn't
Yeah.
played this year.
Yeah, he hasn't played in the majors outside of. I think he was the 27th man
Correct
of a
for the
doubleheader.
Tigers. No, it wasn't even. It was just like I think you got to get an extra guy for the Little League game, and they brought him for that to be part of the, which is cool, by the way.
Yeah.
That they can bring an extra guy just to be part of the awesomeness. So yeah, he went over 4 then. Those are the only 4 plate appearances from Dominguez. He'll probably be back up at least in a week when September expansion happens. But 130, let's talk about this. You're not really ready to pay that. Well, do you think his ADP lives there, or do you think this is like somebody planting their flag? I don't know who took him there, but what do you think he's going to be as a price point? Because we know people pay. We just talked about it with O'Neal Cruz. No matter what he does, he can't get out of the top 50. We talked about it. Michael Harris, 47. So people want to bet on these power speed combos in hopes that they're going to do something. People will bet on the come quite a bit in fantasy, especially in the NFBC circle. So where would you be comfortable with Dominguez, or would you just not take him
I don't think
until
he's
he
a
got
top.
past top 200?
Yeah, I was about to say I don't think he's a top 200 guy. Like I don't understand. Like other than prospect pedigree, what are you betting on? Which like, not saying he's been bad in
No, but
the
he hasn't been
minors.
anything, I guess, is the point that
Yeah,
you're trying to make.
like
It's a blank
he's
canvas.
got 3 home runs in AAA this year.
That's pretty cool.
Like
Um,
like he
okay,
is
but how
hitting
many do you
3.
have?
Yeah, I have more
Let's
than
start answering
3.
the hard questions.
I have more than 3 this
How
year.
many
Like
damn home runs? No,
um
listen, I get your point on Jason Dominguez, not to take us off course with jokes, but he has been excellent in those 43 minor league games. Not all at AAA, by the way. It's split AAA, 29, 10 AA,
but
4 in A ball because he's
there's
been
no
working his way back.
power. There's no power. Like
That's
it's
fair.
like
He
you
went
like
1540 last year, though. Do you put any stock into that for
I'm not a
Dominguez?
big believer in his speed necessarily long term, and do the Yankees allow him to run?
Ooh, okay. So you've pivoted here. This is even a more interesting point because you just said there's no power. It sounds like you believe that can come to fruition, but you're
Yeah, I
more
think the power
skeptical.
will grow as he becomes just a better hitter. And because I mean, I think there is 60 great power in the bat.
Right.
Like this, the speed. Like, is there some speed? Sure, but like
But
are
you
the
don't
Yankees
think he
gonna?
can be a dude on the bases.
No, I don't think he's a 30 stolen base threat. Like
Is
that's.
he 20? Because I think you got to be 20 at pick 130 at least. I think I got to get at
I
least
think
20
he's
steals.
more like a 10 or
Then I
15.
can't get behind
We're
130.
talking
Then that
we're talking about a Yankees team that is 28th in the league in stolen bases.
they have
They're
one guy over 7.
Yeah, like they're not a
Boy,
team that runs because they don't want guys running into outs when you've got
correct.
Judge and Stanton up there, right?
Judge Stanton,
Uh
Soto. I
yeah,
mean,
like
honestly, everyone brings power. Like
yeah,
even
they're
their
a
secondary
station to
guys, Volpe
they're a
and
station to station
Torres.
team. They don't want to be aggressive on the base paths. He doesn't have blazing speed. Like he's one of those guys like, hey, if he was in Washington, if he got traded or something like that, like yeah,
Right,
then maybe he's a 25, 30 stolen base guy
right.
at early on his career. I think the speed definitely wanes as he gets bigger and older, but like obviously we don't care about that for next season on Jason Dominguez. But like on the Yankees, I don't think he's a 20 stolen base threat. I think he's maybe he's in a perfect season for Jason Dominguez, he's like a 30-10 guy. The problem is I don't think the power's developed completely yet.
Right,
And
because
so
he's
I
going
think
to be
he's more like
22 next year.
even if he's playing every day next year, which there's no guarantee if they do bring back Soto, there's no
Right.
guarantee he is playing every day. Like they still have Stanton under contract, they still have Judge under contract.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe he's a 15-10 guy and like with a good batting average. Like, is that worth a top 150 pick? I don't think it is. Not when we're seeing guys go behind him that are pretty tantalizing. So,
Right.
I mean, like he went right ahead of Seiya Suzuki, right behind Cody Bellinger, Christian Yelich, Adolis Garcia, Brandon Nimmo, Wyatt Langford. I'd much rather have Wyatt Langford,
You took the
Colton
words out of my mouth
Cowser.
because I was going to
Like,
say, because you named the old guys, which some people
mhm.
don't want to take the older guys, fine, even though they can be wonderful values. But even if you want to go young, why don't you go Langford 21 picks later, or even Butler 23 picks later? Lawrence
or
Butler
bet
or
on a bounce
Cowser.
bet on a bounce back for Josh Lowe. Like, I mean, Lowe
What's
has
he been doing
shown
this year? I actually
he's
haven't paid enough
he's not
attention to
been
him.
great.
Let me see
He's
here.
dealt with a number of injuries. He's only played 71 games,
Right. So
but
717 in 71 games with a 231. But I agree on
yeah,
betting on the bounce back more at 163. 32 picks later. 2 rounds
I
later, I
mean,
get Josh Lowe versus
right now in our
Dominguez.
comment section, wouldn't you rather bet that Lane Thomas figures it out again?
Post pick 200 because he's not even in
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
So he could be, 180 to 200 range. Yeah. Listen, I like Dominguez, but you're really betting on the come here.
yeah.
And it's a little pricey. It's a little pricey. I get it, sticking your flag on players. And I do this in these early
And
drafts
this
too to
and this
kind of
may be
like,
a one-off. Like
right,
this
right.
may be a one-off where the guy who took him,
It was Rello. Oh, sorry,
yeah.
I said.
I was gonna say,
But
I was
we're
gonna,
not
yeah,
trying to talk shit. And so
you
I
know.
didn't say that to be like,
There's always picks in some of these early drafts where you go, oh, that's going to be the high on
right.
that's going to be the max pick or the min pick for the rest of the draft season. And like this is a premium prospect, so like I don't want to say like, hey, this couldn't happen, like,
Is there
but
anything Dominguez could do in September? Not maybe to make you get to 130, but to get you in the top 11 rounds. Because it sounds like right now you wouldn't have taken him in this draft, Jason
I
Dominguez.
don't think there's anything he can do in September.
Okay.
What I do think that could happen is the Yankees come out and say he's going to be our everyday center fielder or
Right.
everyday,
Locked in, Judge and
um,
right, Soto in
yeah,
left, Stanton
and
DH, Dominguez
yeah,
in center.
yeah, like this. He is going to be an everyday player. He's going to be up day one. We believe in him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and as much as I don't love buying into like coach speak or GM speak, like what he needs is opportunity, and I just don't see the opportunity there for him to like have that everyday role with the way the Yankees are currently constructed. Now, if Soto doesn't return, then he's locked in every day,
Right.
probably in left field. So,
Then you feel
um,
even more comfortable about it. I mean, the lineup's a little bit worse then because they don't have Soto, or a good
but
bit
it's
worse.
still a damn good lineup. Like it's
Exactly. And
still,
they still have Judge, right? They
yeah,
still have Judge. And they'll get other guys too, right? They're going
yeah,
to make other, if they don't get Soto, they're going to allocate that money to improving the team elsewhere. So maybe they get
yeah.
a better infielder or something else like that. I do want to hit on Langford real quick because you mentioned him and we talked about him a lot in the offseason. This is always so funny to me, right? Top 100 pick when he hasn't played a game in the majors. We get 101 games of about league average work. He's a 94 OPS plus right now with 7 homers, 12 steals, and he drops to 150. It's so funny to me because in what universe is his upside lowered? Right?
No,
But
it isn't.
when we
Yeah,
can bet on the blank canvas in fantasy, we will dream anything. But the second we get some numbers, if they don't fit exactly what we want, you know, 50 to 80 picks cheaper than Langford was going in the preseason. You already mentioned that you like him over some of these other guys, including Dominguez. At 150, I got to imagine that you feel pretty decent because you ended up paying for him this year when he fell below that like 75 ADP. I think you got him around
yeah.
100. So what do we think? What we've seen from Langford this year out of 100 games? There's been ups, there's been downs, but I think all in all, for a 22-year-old rookie who got drafted last year, it's been fine.
Yeah, no, it has been fine. I'm not worried about Langford in the slightest. I think that this is the kind of price where this is the perfect spot to take a guy like Langford. The underlying skills on him are fine. He makes really
Right.
good in zone contact. He doesn't swing outside of the zone. I think the one thing I want to see him maybe do a little bit more is just become a little bit more aggressive inside of the zone because
Right.
he's got
Power
pop,
up.
he's got speed. Uh, I think he was pretty unlucky early on in the season, and I think he's probably like a 260 hitter. I think there is potential for him to be, a 30 home run hitter. And I do think that there's 20 to 30 stolen base speed. Now, being in Texas, where a team that doesn't run as much, maybe we never see the 30 stolen bases. But, could he be 30-15 this year with like a 260 bat, or not this year, next year? Yeah, I think Langford could do that. And so, this is the kind of guy I want to bet on figuring it out. And usually I'm the guy who stays away from the rookies and the young guys because I want more established, track record and skill. But I think that the sky's the limit on
this is the time to buy guys like Langford is after they've quote unquote.
And I don't think he stays at this ADP. I don't either. I think he goes up for sure.
Yep, and I'll probably still pay up, but 151 I'm paying all day on Langford.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pete Crow Armstrong 151, kind of in the Cedane Rafaela notion here, where the great defense guarantees him the playing time. Although Rafaela is more expensive at 112, 157 down here for Pete Crow. Do you buy in on? Could this be like a Doyle? Although this is Doyle at a premium because Doyle was like pick 300 this year. I guess just where you at on Pete Crow, because he's a dreadful hitter this year, but does have 23 steals in 24 attempts with 5 homers in 89 games, but hitting 210 with a 68 OPS plus. Can he put something together with the bat to be worth a top 160 pick, Pete Crow Armstrong?
He would have to make a Doyle-esque change. And the thing about Doyle was you're getting him inside the top 300.
Dirt cheap.
Your
favorite phrase, free. Yeah. And Pete Crow is not free.
Yeah, no. So I don't buy Pete Crow Armstrong as a good hitter, and I don't know that I see the upside in Pete Crow Armstrong that other people do. There isn't prodigious power in that bat. Like this is like a contact speed profile without the contact. So this is a defense speed profile. Like
exactly. Yep.
I think because he is a phenomenal defender, like I think he can keep an everyday role, but I think he's always going to bat 8 or 9. And I think Pete Crow Armstrong is never going to deliver anything other than stolen bases in fantasy, unless there is a massive change to the profile. And we just haven't seen that. And I'm not going to bet that there's going to be a
bet for it. Exactly. I think you're betting on the change right now already.
If I'm going to take a shot on a profile like this, it has to be in the ADP range that Doyle was going. It has to be $1 at the end of your auction. It has to be a reserve pick type of guy in a snake draft. It can't be a top 150 pick.
No, I agree. I think that I was actually really surprised by this price point. This feels a little aggro.
I feel like
aggro. It feels a lot.
This may be another one where like this is the high of his ADP. I can't imagine that. He's a guy that regularly goes this high. I'd be interested to hear, and I will listen to Rob's podcast
because I want to hear his picks.
Yeah, Rob was the guy who picked him, and so I'd love to hear why Rob, because he's a super smart dude,
right?
And so I'd love to hear his rationale. But this to me feels kind of out of left field. Even though
he's from
center field.
And Rob's a guy who could certainly sway me, right? There's people that you listen to, and when they make a compelling case, you're like, okay, I can get there. I hadn't really seen it that way. So I also want to know what he was thinking on Pete Crow, because I really, really did enjoy his draft there. I thought he made some really savvy picks, including the one right before it with Vientos, the interesting power, and your boy Luis Garcia. So he tried to win you over with the Luis Garcia pick so that you wouldn't pay attention to the Pete Crow. By the way, petition to change real quick. We have to petition to change his name to Pete Crow, where the Crow is with the Pete, because currently his last name is Crow Armstrong. I like the idea of his name being Pete Crow and his last name just being Armstrong. Very frivolous point, but I had to make it. Go ahead. What were you going to say? That something serious?
I will say that in the second half, so since his return from kind of the minor leagues, he has been better in the contact.
He's been better, yes,
but it's still not good. So
correct.
He's still 39% O swing, 81% zone contact. That is still not good, but it is an improvement. So maybe there is this idea that, hey, look, he's already showing improvement. Maybe we can figure something else out here. The problem is he just does not barrel the ball. He's got a 5% barrel rate in the second half, even though he is hitting the ball hard. He he doesn't barrel it. He's usually getting under.
But at least he's going to almost certainly get 600 plate appearances because he is a brilliant center
You
field
would
defender,
think
Pete Crow
so.
Armstrong. Yeah,
Yeah.
but sometimes the offense can be too low to where like they
Yeah.
can't just keep running you out there. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap it on outfielders here. Closers, we're not going to go too deep because that's going to fluctuate so much just between now and October, let alone now in the season. Just want to point out that 15 closers went, which is actually maybe lower than I expected. I guess that's essentially one per team through the first 11 rounds. I don't know if it breaks out exactly like that. I'm almost certain that it doesn't. Clase, Devin Williams, Edwin Diaz, Felix Bautista all go in the top 40. Hader, Iglesias there in the and Helsley still in the top 50. Then you get Duran, Mason Miller, Robert Suarez, Anthony Munoz, the freaking Cincinnati Bengal, Andres Munoz, pick 63. And then you jump down to Alexis Diaz at 85. Then you make a big jump down from Alexis Diaz to Clay Holmes at 139, Bednar at 140, and Kenley at 164. The closer market sucks shit, Justin. I'm still going to be going aggressively after one of the aces. What do you think about closers and how they went here?
I mean, I would like to point out that while the back half of closing situations have kind of sucked this year,
the studs have studded.
The studs have studded, and this is why we pay for saves, right?
Exactly.
Like, the whole old moniker about don't pay for saves, like, this is why I pay for saves now. The guys who are studs are still studs.
And let me just be fair to that moniker or to that adage. It was based in a world when most of the time there were like 27 established closers and then like 3 situations were maybe super in flux. We now have like 11 established closers and 19 teams that are in flux. So it's a totally different ball game out there. I think even the most adamant don't pay for saves guys and gals out there would reassess that and say,
I would hope, yeah.
I've changed. Yeah. But go ahead, continue on that then.
So, but yeah, I mean, I want one of these top, 8, 9 guys.
Gotta get one of them.
I mean, it's interesting to see Felix Bautista being as high.
I was so surprised that he went all the way right back to 39. Now, isn't that just a further indictment of the pool, though?
I think it's a further indictment of the pool, but also a further indictment of the Orioles, right? Like, there's just nobody else in that bullpen that was able to grab the reins and kind of run with it. And we have not seen Felix Bautista pitch. And, like, all of a sudden, he's a top 45 pick.
Right.
I'm not even saying it's wrong.
It's just surprising. I agree. I don't even think it's wrong.
It is surprising, especially when there's another guy who's been a elite closer in the past who's going to have a job all to himself next year. That's coming off of a season missed to injury. That's pitching already in AAA in Liam Hendricks.
Oh,
he's going to have that Boston job. Like, Kenley's a free agent,
right?
Like, I'm surprised that Liam Hendricks didn't go kind of in this draft, and maybe
he'll be one of the RP2.
Yeah, so like he's a guy that like I would be targeting to once they restart this draft. I don't know when they're exactly gonna restart it, but like he's a guy that probably should have gone off in the 10th or 11th round and someone been fist pumping, but now someone's gonna fist pump, round 12 because I am sure he will go early on at 12.
He's gotta. You think Hendricks got to go soon there because yes, he's a bit older, but he is coming back. Like you said, he's working his way back. Could even get a glimpse to finish this year. Him and Kenley, 1-2 punching it down the stretch there for Boston. But then next year, it's his job because they signed him for 2 years with a mutual in 26. That if things really go well, they're going to have him closing for 2 years. So that's a great call out. Anything else on these closers before we run through our 2-step folks to close out the episode?
Where are you at on Mason Miller? Missing time with injury. He's elite when he pitches, but he's always kind of hurt. And they're moving to like a bandbox of a stadium.
That is fair. But we did say, and you even pointed out yesterday, like we said, no Oakland pitchers except for Mason Miller. I will still go for him. I think my main concern, I'm okay at 53. I think he's going to be picked 33 by draft season. Yeah, I think he's going to be right in there with Clase and Dev. So at this price point, I can get there. At the top end price point, I'm going to lean toward the better teams. I think they'll improve next year and be like a 70-win team, but that's not enough.
I think I'm with you right there.
But I do like he's been awesome. He's absolutely been awesome.
I also love the guys who are in the back half of these picks, right? Like
Right.
Alexis Diaz, I know he's been shaky at times, but the Reds are committed to him. They seem to they're just going to
And
keep rolling him out
he's
there.
very good. I still think he's
Yeah.
very good and worth committing to. So I don't mind that they've stuck with him and should stick with him into next year. By
Somehow
the way,
Clay Holmes hasn't lost his job.
he's got
Like
nasty stuff,
he's
dude.
got great stuff. And I'm not worried about like David Bednar's second half kind of swoon here. Like I just think
No,
he's going to be fine.
and they've stayed committed to him too.
Yeah.
That's the thing as well. By the way, Oakland is pacing for 70 wins this year. So I think they'll be more of an upper 70s, maybe even low 80s win team. Like they're putting some things together. The park is going to be really interesting next year, though. As we
Yeah.
mentioned, they're putting some compelling things together pitching wise that might get upended by that park in Sacramento. So be careful there. But let's talk some two start. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the coverage there of next year's draft. I'm already excited to really get going on next year's stuff in October when we do that. But let's get through these two steps. Again, I cut off guys that just don't need any question. If they're on here, then I'm really concerned about starting them and whether or not you think they should be started. So let's start with Nick Pivetta and Cooper Criswell, two Boston guys getting Toronto and at Detroit. You starting both or one or the other or neither?
I don't think I'm starting Criswell, but Pavetta, like that's a pretty good two-step schedule,
Right? That's the only thing
for
saving him though, because he's been pissing me off lately.
yeah, but he still gets you strikeouts. He doesn't walk
Right?
too many guys.
I think you got to go with it with Toronto, Detroit.
I think you're going with it with Toronto and Detroit. In tens, you may have a better option,
Sure.
but I think in most 12s and all 15s, you're rolling with them.
Yeah, and it's like it's streamable in a 10. If you're searching,
Yeah,
you could go for like he's been rough of late, but the schedule's also been a little rough with at Houston, at Baltimore, at Texas. I know Texas isn't quite as good. Incidentally, that was the best start of the bunch. The tough part right now with Nick Pivetta, and if this doesn't change, then even Toronto and Detroit might get him. He's allowed exactly 2 homers in each of the last 5 starts. So
yeah.
10 homers in 5 starts, that won't cut it for Pivetta. So it is still a dicey start, but I do think you're finding a lot of spots to start Nick Pivetta. Cooper Criswell, I agree. I'm not really in. Maybe a 15-team Hail Mary, but that's it. Nick Martinez has been doing some compelling things for Cincinnati. What do you think of Oakland, Milwaukee, both at home for him? A couple of power hitting teams coming into Cincy's Park to visit Nick Martinez.
Man, the problem is, yeah, like Oakland actually can like beat you up, and the
Right?
difference on Nick Martinez's splits this year, home versus away, he's got a 4.42 home ERA, a 2.72 away ERA. He is much better, and it's not the homers, that has been the problem for him.
Is the hits, if I
It's the
recall
hits.
correctly,
He's just
right? Okay.
sick. In 55 home innings, he's allowed 67 hits. In 46 away innings, he's allowed 31. He's
Damn.
allowed over twice the amount of hits in just 10 more innings. Like
That's crazy.
it's like, so I think this is only 15 teams you're willing to take this risk, because while a 4.42 ERA is not great, it's not atrocious. He's not at 5 or anything like that.
Sure.
But I would try to stick away from it because it's at home.
Yep, I'd be careful here with Nick Martinez. I think team context is going to drive this. If you're desperate, he could be an interesting Hail Mary. But if you're anything but that, I think you have to be really careful here outside of 15-teamers for Nick Martinez. Davis Martin gets, for the White Sox, gets the Tigers and the Mets. They are both at home. It's probably a pass, but I figure I'd check in with you because he's done some things of note here. Davis Martin, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the hard part is you just don't know if he's going to go deep enough in the game if he has any sort of struggles to
Right.
qualify for a win. I mean, you're
And,
talking
and what's
about,
his win potential, even if you guaranteed 5 and 6 innings for Davis Martin?
I don't think it's very high on those White Sox. So I'm probably not outside of a 15-team Hail Mary, but I'm just staying away from it.
And we haven't had enough time yet to see the effects of it. They literally just did it last Friday. But the Tigers really infused their lineup last week with, a youth movement. Torkelson was recalled with Jace Young and Trey Sweeney. Jace Young, one of their prospects. Trey Sweeney, one of the guys they got in the Flaherty deal, along with Kerry Carpenter coming off the IL. So now they have one guy who's even close to 30 years old, and that's Jake Rogers at 29. Now, being young doesn't instantly make them better, but they have committed to a youth movement to where the Tigers could actually be a scrappy team down the stretch that maybe you're not
Mhm.
as much about spamming against them. So I don't even know in a one-off if I love the Davis Martin against Detroit start. Brant Herter gets the White Sox in Chicago for Detroit, and then Boston comes to play. The Boston part's a little scary, but Brant Herter, a guy that they were doing some bulk stuff with, he could still get an opener, but I think he had a traditional start the last time out. But what do you think of Brant Herter for the Tigers?
He actually didn't. He has
Okay,
not he has not officially started a game yet. So, which makes him interesting because that White Sox start and like Herder doesn't walk anybody, and there's a little bit of strikeout upside there. The problem is his command can be spotty at times, and when you have a
right,
team like Boston coming to town, they can really make you pay for bad command. That scares the crap out of me. So, this is a
rightfully.
situation where I'd be willing to stream him for that White Sox start, but if I have to take both in a weekly league or like an NFBC style league, like I'm not messing with Boston. So in your daily lineups league where you could pick him up and then put him on the bench for the Boston game, I think I would do that. But for both, I'm not risking it against Boston.
You're not wrong about Boston. I'm a little bit more open to risking it for what Brant Herter's done because with getting an opener, doesn't even have to go five to possibly get a
Yeah,
win, and the Tigers could support. Boston is the scary one, though. I think 15s I can get there
yeah.
on the two step, but otherwise I'm with you. Just take the Chicago start. That's a wraparound series, by the way. So Kenta Maeda actually gets the Angels in Boston. I think it's a no. He's been doing some better things of late, but
No.
Boston's just entirely too scary for
Yeah.
Maeda, right? Would you take the Angels start as a one off for Maeda? Has he done enough
Um.
lately to kind of because
Yeah. I think I would.
okay, I think I would too. I won't belabor it, but and the way he settled down yesterday was impressive. I think it was a bad first or second inning, and then yeah, 4 runs in the second, and then he still ended up going 5 innings. I was impressed by that with Kenta Maeda. Anyway, oh wait, that was his first inning because he got an opener. So yeah, his first inning he gave up 4 of the 5 runs and then settled down. So Maeda's been better of late. Let's see, where else are we going here? Michael Lorenzen at Cleveland at Houston. That's a tough two-step. He does have the KC defense and offense supporting him, but what do you think of that? Cleveland and Houston on the road for Lorenzen.
Lorenz has been really good in the second half.
Yeah, he has.
Um, I
Nice
mean,
pickup by them.
we're talking about 32 innings of a 3.34 ERA. Like the strikeouts aren't amazing or anything, but he's just doing a really good job of keeping the ball in the yard, not walking too many guys. He definitely can have control problems, but I think he's like a pretty interesting 15 team kind of guy and a 12 team streamer.
Right.
So like I think you are rolling with Lorenzen here, even with the going to Houston. Houston's a good team, but they're not blowing people out necessarily. So I think I would roll with this one in a 15 for sure. In a 12, I think 12s you're gonna kind of make your decision. 10s maybe not because the strikeout upside and the back half matchup isn't great.
I think that's all exactly right there with Michael Renzen. But yeah, he's definitely looked better with KC, and I like that they can support him. And Cleveland not hitting as well lately either. The Houston
Yeah,
one is the one that's scary.
yeah,
Johnny Cueto,
exactly.
you had him in the roto write up for his return.
Yep.
KC gave him some love. He pitched pretty well, 6 1/3, 3 runs. The old Johnny Cueto back, 8 hits. Did have to grind out, working around 8 hits and only had 1 strikeout. But he's on a potential two-step next week that would include at Detroit and home to Seattle. So again, we're not yet running from Detroit. We're just saying they could become something that's scrappy. And Seattle, they're striking out right now and they're not even playing. So would you be at all compelled by that? Now it's not a locked two-step. We have to know Soriano might return and take the Sunday start. But if he
Mhm.
did get at debt and home to Seattle, would you be interested in Cueto in a 15-teamer?
I think it's only a 15 teamer
Only 15.
and it's really risky. I know like the first start was like like the line is like
It's
okay, that's not too
decent.
bad. We're talking about he had what 1 strikeout in 6 1/3.
Yes. And
Um
8 hits. It was KC. He was
yeah.
proverbial dodging raindrops, 10 base runners and 6 2/3, so a
You know what his
158
do you
whip.
know what his xERA was for that start?
Has to be closer to 6.
Try double that. It was 12.75. So,
Okay, so
yeah,
yeah, that's rough.
he got some pretty good BABIP luck
Right.
to like not get murdered in this
When
one.
runners were on, right? Because he
Yeah,
did a lot. Cueto still allowed 8 hits, but
yeah,
then when those runners were on, he was getting the balls to find gloves
yeah,
somehow.
yeah. I don't think this is going to end well. I understand taking the dart throw to 15-team league, especially if you're win seeking.
Full Hail
Um,
Mary mode.
but like he's on the Angels. Like, this isn't a good team. Like, so
Right.
like win seeking with when you're an Angels pitcher probably isn't the best case scenario.
You're gonna have to pray for
So
that one for sure.
yeah, I think that's what
I,
it is.
I'm surprised I have this guy on, but I have to because he sucks so far this year. Walker Buehler gets Baltimore and at Arizona. That's a devastating two-step for a would-be ace who's not pitching anything like an ace. Do you have the confidence in Buehler this week?
No, I mean,
Hail
I
Mary
don't.
only, or not
I
even
think
Hail Mary?
I think Hail Mary only. I think that there are going to be a lot of 15-team leagues where there's just nothing on the waiver
Right,
wire. Like I even picked him up in labor. I may end up just dropping him, but just in the hopes that maybe the Dodgers can fix him at some point. Maybe he
right.
has some useful
Something
starts down the
clicks.
stretch. But at the end of the day, like he's not going deep enough to even qualify for wins. You don't get the benefit of pitching for the Dodgers.
Right.
So I just can't imagine outside of NL only a scenario in which I'm going to be using him this week.
Edward Cabrera goes to Colorado, so I'm not even going to waste your time on it.
Yeah, no.
Tobias Myers might not even belong on here. He's been so good with a 287 ERA. It's not fully earned, and we don't have to break down
Yeah.
entirely all of his numbers there. But Tobias Myers, San Francisco, and at Cincy, I think 15s, he's a lock. He's been too good. There's not enough out there. What about 12s and 10s with Tobias? Have you developed any trust with Tobias Myers in the shallower formats?
I mean, I feel like there should be regression coming, but sometimes guys just outrun that regression. And
All year, right? And
yeah,
it comes calling the next year.
yeah, and I think that may be kind of the case where like this is a guy that like I don't even know where he's going to end up. He didn't go in the draft, so like we
Nor
like he's
should he have, by the way.
yeah. But like the one thing that Tobias Myers does do that a lot of more powerful pitchers don't do is he has a complete repertoire. He's got 4 pitches he can throw at any time.
Mm-hmm.
They are all, kind of they're all average-ish pitches, but like when you mix well with like a complete arsenal, you can fool, hitters. And he's one of these guys that I love the kind of term that he's a pitcher, not a thrower.
Right.
We see, lots of young guys go up there and they don't really know how to sequence. They don't know how to mix their pitches, but like they're going to blow you away with their stuff.
They live on talent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tobias Myers is a smart pitcher who goes up there with a plan. William Contreras has been great behind the plate for him.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I do think that there is some viability to his numbers, and he's one of these guys that can outrun the peripherals for a while, not this good. And so like at some
not
point,
285
yeah,
forever, but
at some point, like there will be regression, but I think you have to just roll and kind of wait for it to happen and go, hey, listen, I banked a lot of really good stats with Tobias Myers. So yeah, I'm starting him in 12s and 15s for sure, and probably most 10s.
yeah, I think that's where I'm at with Tobias Myers too. And the win potential is high, even if you do give up some runs because Milwaukee's supporting you too. So that certainly helps here. And San Francisco, not the scariest offense. Trip to Cincy, always concerning because they can get you, but they have not been biting too many teams. So I'm not even too concerned about that either there with Tobias Myers. Mitch Spence at Cincy at Texas. Generally an Oakland guy, you want him in Oakland. So you're getting 2 on the road here. I imagine it's a no, but any scenarios where you're going for Spence?
I just can't imagine doing it. I mean, he's been so bad on the road. He's got a 5.63 road ERA.
Huge split guy. Yep.
Yeah. So
okay,
no thanks.
let's move on then. We don't need to belabor it on Mitch Spence. Might find some viability later, but this is just not the week with no home games. Randy Vasquez goes to St. Louis and Tampa Bay. Not sure he's doing enough either, but 15 team viable for Vasquez with a 2-step.
Can we pour one out for our boy Matt Waldron, who got pummeled and then sent down? It was fun while it lasted.
Exactly, but the regression came for him and bit him in a big way.
Yeah.
Actually, to that point, Vasquez isn't even a guarantee. They're slotting him in here because that would have been Waldron's spot. So I don't even know if we need to spend too much time on Vasquez because it actually might not be.
Well,
it could be somebody else.
And Vasquez isn't good.
Also, a very valid point from a fantasy perspective.
I mean,
let's not worry about that. Then.
Vasquez has a 6 K per 9 this year, and a home run problem. No thanks.
Our buddy, our best friend Kyle Gibson is facing a bigger challenge than the lawn at my old apartment could ever be, because he's got San Diego and then a trip to the Bronx. Is there any
Ugh.
world where you're starting our guy,
No.
Kyle Gibson? Okay. Then we
No,
don't, we just, we,
I love my boy, but that at New York Yankees, like if it was San Diego and then at the Mets, then maybe
right.
but
But it's San Diego
at the
and
Yankees,
then the Yankees
no
on the
thanks.
road.
Yeah,
And I'll root for him, and I hope he throws 14 scoreless innings, but
I
I'm
do
not
too.
putting Kyle
Yeah.
Gibson on my roster for that. Another
Speaking of boys, yeah,
show favorite here, Andrew Heaney at the White Sox, home to Oakland. Pretty solid two-step here. We know Oakland can hit some homers, and going to guaranteed rate. Ostensibly, they might be able to hit a homer or two as well, but I'm not that worried about it. I think Heaney's pitching well enough. I'm going to start this in 15s and maybe even consider him in 12s. What do you think about Heaney with the White Sox and the A's on tap?
Heaney is the epitome of a human dart throw. Like you just never know what you're going to quite get. You look over his last 6 starts, and he's got 4 starts where he's given up 4 runs or more. One of them was 3 earned runs, and then he's got 2 gems, and like some of the gems are against good teams like Houston, and
Mm-hmm.
some of the bad ones are against teams like the Blue Jays, right? Like I don't know what you're going to get. He also, in these 6 starts, he's got 3 of them where he didn't go deep enough to qualify for a win.
Right.
I think this is a 15-team dart throw, even with the good matchups. Like I don't think I risk. Oh, maybe I would risk it in 12.
I think you can go with
The
Heaney
good
in 12s
matchups,
because of the matchups, but it
but
is still
Oakland's
very
a team
risky.
that can murder you. Like
That's the thing. The one thing they do well is homers, and that's always been Heaney's kryptonite. So that
and
is scary, without a doubt.
give me 1 second. I just want to look something up real quick while we're
Okay.
talking, because I want to say that, and for some reason my screen's not working. I want to say Oakland has been really good against left-handed pitching this year.
Ooh, I think you might be right on that.
And so I'm trying to pull it up real quick, and here we go. So Oakland is the 9th best team in baseball against left-handed pitching.
Yeah. So okay. So you know what?
I think
I'm
in
tapping the brakes in
12s.
12s a little bit more. Yeah.
I think 12s, it's debatable whether or not you should, even with an Oakland, Chicago.
Yeah. A lot
just
more
because
up in the air than I was suggesting for Heaney in 12s. 15s, again, I think you kind of have to.
he's just so unpredictable. You just never
Right.
know what you're going to get with Heaney. I love the
Heaney's
dude.
Heaney's terrifying.
Yeah.
But we know it's a wild card.
Human
Matchups
dart
don't
throw.
always matter. Yariel Rodriguez goes to Boston, which I think is enough to say no, but he also gets at Minnesota on the weekend. Any love for Yariel?
I love the stuff, man. I really
It's
do
nasty.
love the stuff. But like, he's one of those guys that maybe it clicks at some point, but it just reminds me so much of Jonathan Sanchez in terms of like he could go out there and throw a no hitter one day, and then the
Right.
next day give up 7. So I just don't know that he's ever going to figure it out. But I'm definitely not betting it against Boston.
I respect and applaud Toronto for sticking with him in the rotation. They should continue to do
They
so.
absolutely should.
But I
Yeah,
do think eventually 2 to 3 inning fireman is going to be
he'd be
Yariel
a dynamic
Rodriguez's.
closer.
Right.
You know.
Last guy, Mitchell Parker. It includes the Yankees, so I'm sure it's a no. But Yankees, Cubs, both at home for Mitchell Parker. He kind of has resteadied the ship after having a little rookie wall there. Back on track a bit recently. Gave up 9 at Philly. Bounced back with 7 innings, 1 run against Colorado, which was really nice. Had 2 scoreless outings before that as well. Well, one was a quote-unquote scoreless outing. It was 2 unearned runs. But the bottom line is, outside of that bomb at Philly, we've seen better Mitchell Parker of late, but you have to take on the Yankees. Yankees, Cubs,
Yeah.
Mitchell Parker, yay or nay?
I think I'm probably staying away from the Yankees in
Right.
that regard. I mean, now the Yankees aren't as good. I don't
Yeah, how
believe
good are they
against
against lefties?
lefties. They're 14th in the league in OPS, so they aren't as good. So I think like there is a world in which maybe a 15-team world, being at home, maybe you could risk it, but I just don't. I don't know that I want to. I think the Yankees are too good.
Again, one of the biggest things I'm trying to do down the stretch, and all year, obviously, but down the stretch especially, is I'm trying to avoid that 9-run bomb. Like,
Yeah.
if you started Mitchell Parker at Philly, you kind of got what you deserve. Like, don't start him in
Yeah.
those sort of spots. The same thing would be the Yankees here. I just don't think you should take this risk. It's entirely too risky. You're
you
trying to
take
avoid the bombs.
you take the risk when you have team dependent reasons to do so, right? Like
Correct.
if maybe your ratios are kind of locked in where they're at because of your league context, even though we know
Yes, to
ratios
where
can move, right?
the way the
Um,
standings have stratified, you
yes.
might not be able to move, so you could take the risk.
But then you're looking for strikeouts or wins, and Mitchell Parker's not a big strikeout guy, and the
Right.
Nationals aren't beating the Yankees, so like, why are you risking that?
That's fair. Yeah. So when you start breaking it down, it's just like it's really hard to get there with Parker.
Yeah.
But he's had an impressive season, and I'll be giving him a deep dive this offseason to really see if they found something here, because I've been impressed for sure. But there we go. We got through it all. We got through the rest of the draft and the two-step, folks. Justin, it's been great talking with you this weekend. Are you and Jason getting together this week? Are you and Jason getting together this weekend?
I gotta send him a text. I've been so busy that I haven't been able to get together with him. It hasn't been Jason's fault, so I apologize for that. I will send him a text and see. I believe I've got Sunday open, so we should be
Okay.
able to do it.
Sounds wonderful. Otherwise, we will talk on Monday. We'll talk on Monday regardless. But other than that, I'll talk to you later.
Take it easy.